All right, ready?
Yep.
Pop them pills, take those supplements, vitamins. What are you taking?
Activated charcoal.
Oh, okay.
That seemed to have helped when I had these
Your
symptoms.
stomach. Yeah. All right. So Jason, we haven't talked too much about what's going on here, but I'm trying to get the message out about fitness,
Hmm.
lifestyle, habits, things that and things that I've gone through that I know other guys are going through being over 40, and just want to share the message of other people. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people out there. There's a lot of people have different backgrounds. You've got a very unique story. Your journey through fitness and doing different things to from where you were to where you are today. So I just wanted to kind of get you to share your story a little bit. Um, you are Jason Schreiber. You are the owner of Top Tier Columbia, which is a CrossFit gym, fitness gym in Columbia, Maryland. You also do some other things. You do youth sports, you do kettlebell work, you do personal training, like you do a ton of different things. So tell us a little bit about you and where you're at right now.
Like the fitness part of me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all right, yeah. So I own three different businesses. Top Tier Fitness is one of them. That's the brick and mortar fitness
Hmm.
facility, Columbia, Maryland. I have a personal brand called Noble Training Institute, which largely right now is just free content and information from my opinions, my beliefs around the world of health and fitness. Um, and then Evolving Athletics is a youth athletics strength and conditioning program that fundamentally is attempting to gamify strength and conditioning for youth athletics, since the majority of the teams and the coaches don't really engage in that behavior. They just sort of play sport year round.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
We could
yeah,
have
so
probably have a whole we could probably have a whole session talking just about all that stuff, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so I'm 41. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. It has been my life since graduating college. Graduated University of Maryland. I've been lucky to have several, mentors that were
Hmm.
really kind of high profile people and exposed me to a lot of things. So I have experience in the strength and conditioning world at the D1 level. I also have experience in the chiropractic office uh, with a chiropractor who was very special. He was basically a strength and conditioning coach first and a chiropractor second.
Okay.
So the business ran mostly around the idea of training and fitness and not traditional chiropractic care.
Okay.
Um,
Speaking of that's interesting. So this is something that we've talked about before, right? It's
Mhm.
strength being the base. How do you see strength in the tier of all the things fitness related? Where does strength sit to you? For me, it's the bottom, like it's the foundation. You've got to have a base of strength. But
Yep,
is
I
that kind of
agree.
how you agree
That's
that
100. Yeah, I 100% agree.
why let's talk about why that is. Why, in your opinion, why is strength one of like the most important things you need to worry about?
Um, I'll use a very concrete example. So I have a 75-year-old couple that I've been working with for 4 years.
Yeah.
When I met them, they couldn't get out of a chair without assistance or without momentum. Like they kind of had to kind of
Swing it.
rock
Yeah.
back and forth to kind of get
Yeah.
themselves to stand up. Um, that's a obvious lack of strength, right? So every single day, every activity, every position we spend our time in, it's all based on how well we can produce force in those positions to control whatever's happening. So
Mhm.
strength fundamentally is just us producing force in a certain direction at a certain speed.
Right.
So every single daily activity is easier if you're stronger. Um, and you can break that down to the most fundamental of things, like I'm laying on the ground and I want to get to my feet, or I got to get off the toilet, on the toilet, even, in
Yeah.
and out of
Yeah.
a car.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to pick up groceries and carry them into the house. Well, that's called a farmer's carry.
Right.
you know,
Right.
um, yeah. So strength is in my opinion, the foundation of it all, because without it, everything in life, including the world of fitness, is exponentially more difficult and risky.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if how much endurance you have, how much flexibility you have. any of that kind of stuff if you're not strong enough to actually perform the action.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not strong enough, I can be super flexible, but if I'm not strong enough to put myself in that position and hold it, or hold a weight, or be in under stress, because right, it's about handling stress.
Right.
And in order to handle stress, you have to be strong. So, okay, cool. Awesome. So for anybody listening out there, I like what you were saying with your mentor. He's a chiropractor, but it was more of a strength and conditioning facility,
Mm-hmm.
because that's kind of the base, right? You got to be strong to be healthy. You got to be strong to prevent injury. You got to be strong to help heal from injury. Those are all aspects of that kind of thing. Cool.
Yep.
All right. So after the chiropractic stuff, what did you do from there?
Opened my first business. So I never planned on being a business owner. The truth is, I actually never thought I'd be able to. Like, I wasn't competent enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was never on the list of things I thought that I would ever do. And the chiropractor, he had a bunch of health issues, and they became life threatening. And he was forced to make a decision. Do I continue working, or do I focus on me and trying to get well? It wasn't possible to do both at that time in his life. So he made the decision to sell the business and retire, and that left me in sort of a bit of a panic, because we had been together for 8 years. I see him as a father figure, and so I asked him. I said, "Well, like, what about me? Like, what should I
You're right.
do?"
You're quitting. What's going on?
Yeah, because I really imagined we would be together for another 10 years or so. It was awesome what we did.
Yeah.
And so he basically just, he sat me down. He's like, "Jason, you're 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 not going to be happy working for anybody else. You're too advanced. You've been exposed to too much. If you go try to, become a therapist or a coach for another, PT or chiropractic office," he's like, you're good. It's not going to be anything like what you've experienced. So
Right.
you're going to have to, grow some balls. I mean, that's how he talks to me. Grow some balls.
Yeah.
And open your own thing and try and make it work. And when he said it, I immediately thought, nah, that ain't happening. But over the course of a few days, maybe weeks, I don't remember, it just, I kept thinking about it, and I decided, really, that, like, this is not an exaggeration. I literally decided that because he told me that's what I should do, and he had never steered me wrong, and always cared for me. Like, you know what? If he's saying this to me, I'm just going to trust it. So I'm going to try.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
That's the power of a mentor, right? The power of having someone who's kind of been there, done that.
Yeah.
Kind of that you put that trust in. I wish more people had that trust, or had that relationship with somebody that they could do that with. I see it in people all the time, and members at the gym and clients. It's like you're paying us to help you follow a process and get you from point A to point B. And maybe 50% of the time you actually listen to and do what we did.
Right.
And then you get frustrated, and they get upset. They're not seeing progress. This isn't happening. That's not happening. It's like, well, think about these two things here for a second, right? You're asking us to help you, but you got to do what we say. So I definitely wish that was something more people were cognizant of, actually listening to and trusting the people that they're asking advice from.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. So it sounds like, so you've been in fitness for 20 years. Have you always been fit, in shape, healthy, active?
No, not at all. So I will say I've been active. So that is true. But so I grew up in around martial arts. So I started martial arts, Taekwondo, when I was something like 5, maybe 6, something like that, and stuck with that all through my teenage years, and shifted into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and some other Japanese martial arts in my later teen years. And so that was my outlet. That actually was not about fitness. That was about getting my aggression out in a way that wouldn't end up hurting me.
Or others.
Yeah. And so, man, so we can get as deep into this as you want, but so as a really young child, there was a lot of physical and sexual abuse in my life, not from my immediate family. It was from babysitters, but ironically, my parents found multiple babysitters to do the victimizing.
Yeah.
And so I don't trust people. It's something that I continually work on inside my own brain.
Hmm.
Um, so it made me grow up very isolated. I was very much a loner, do my own thing. Imagine, when I had a very small, close group of friends, and I maintained those friendships.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I didn't really have any social interaction, besides school and kind of forced stuff. Um, Once I got into puberty and I was more interested in girls and dating, that's where the real problems with my health started to really show up.
Okay.
And so I became very depressed because I felt I was a very, very skinny kid, very small kid,
Hmm.
even as a teenager. And I felt, and this is not to blame on anybody. I don't even know where it came from, but I felt fat. All right, so I had definitely like body dysmorphia issues.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt fat. I felt unattractive. I felt undesired, unloved, and the later teenage years that manifested itself in anorexia and exercise bulimia.
Hmm.
Excessive exercising.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, the depression, grew and grew and grew because it's just how those diseases tend to work, right? And
Cycle. Right.
got to a point where I became suicidal, even attempted suicide. And sometime after that, I met my first girlfriend. I was so excited and pumped and felt, noticed.
Hmm.
And uh, once that relationship ended, it's just sort of added to everything. So,
Sure.
so I don't really feel like I've honored and focused on my health until probably around 30.
Okay.
So not that long ago. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I started exercising in the world of fitness around 21, something like that. It was right after college, or it was like near the tail end of college.
Okay.
And that's when, at that point, I had overcome to a degree the eating disorder stuff,
Hmm.
and was trying to change how my body looked. I didn't think I was fat anymore, so I had at least a more uh, honest,
Yeah.
perspective on how I
Yeah.
looked.
Were
So the
you,
weight room became like a place for me to try and change my appearance and
yeah,
how I felt.
were you doing competitive stuff at that point? So we just focused more performance than it was health.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Because there
So
is a difference, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand that.
yeah, yeah. So I was competing in martial arts and MMA world in the
Hmm.
early stages of that industry, um, and so yeah, so that was no way, man. That was not healthy. I'll tell you, back then, I don't know what it's like now because I'm out of that world, but
Yeah.
um, dude, like everybody was, using like it was like cocaine to get yourself like pumped up to go do, the training,
Yeah.
opiates all around because of how bad your body hurt. Lots of alcohol consumption. I mean, in no way was that environment healthy for me.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
around a bunch of people like who I trained with were just a bunch of brawlers, and there were a bunch of like
Those
a lot of
animals.
them worked in bars as
Yeah.
bouncers and stuff like
Yep.
that. So it was in no way healthy.
Yeah.
But I felt cool. I felt important.
Yeah. Part of a high percentage, a low percentage membership, right? Not many people did it then, especially back then.
Yeah,
And it was,
yeah.
yeah, it was badass. All right. So I mean, I think that part of your story is really impactful from the standpoint of getting people to understand that struggles with health don't always have to do with body fat. They don't
Mhm.
always have to do with medication. They don't always have to do with physical stuff, but that mental health is just as important and in many cases more impactful and more important than worrying about any of the other stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, the older I get and the more experience I get, I really think, I really believe the majority of this stuff is about, up in here, like the narratives that
Mhm.
we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world around us and the
Yep,
belief systems that we hold.
absolutely.
And that's it's a more recent observation, in my life. It's only the last several years I've really come to fully appreciate it's very little physicality anymore.
Right,
I focus much more on the mental side and emotional side to life with clients,
right. What are some
and
of
myself.
when you are working with someone on the client side, what are some of the things mentally that you try to focus on to get them to be more self-aware, but then also to get them to buy into what you're doing so that they keep coming back and see progress and don't give up?
Um, in so in general, I ask a lot of questions,
Okay.
and so I'm initially a listener when I work with people in the early stages.
Yeah.
Bec- Um, and so I guess in a way I function a lot like probably a therapist in the beginning. So like
Okay.
when people provide information, what like a typical consultation will involve talking about goals, right?
Hmm.
But the I know going into it that whatever is going to come out of the client's mouth about why they're sitting here talking to me and why they're considering hiring me is not actually the real answer. Like that
Never.
it's the answer that they're willing to provide at that time.
Sure.
And so
Or it's the way it's the answer that they as they understand it. They haven't
right,
taken the time to dig deeper to figure out what
right,
really is going on. Yeah. Yeah.
right. I mean, it's not. I don't usually come away feeling like they're trying to hide something from me.
Right.
It's more like what you said. Like they're almost unaware of the layers of the onion that are there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I ask a lot of questions, and I try to get them through the questions to unpeel that onion to get to the deeper belief systems. And, again, a concrete example would be I'm working with somebody at the gym, and I'd say I'm functioning more like a life coach. Like I'm trying to help that person like integrate all these different things in their life, not just in the world of fitness.
Sure.
And the person's made a really huge change in their life for the last 3 years. I'm sorry, 3 months. And they're excited about it. They've been consistent. And this person is now thinking about performance based stuff too, like considering, um, adding things to their plate.
Right.
And, the old me would have been like, okay, like let's put a plan into action to move you in that direction. And I still will, but I don't. I force that person to at least have a conversation with me about why they think they need to. Like, what is
Right.
it? Like, why are you not happy with where you're at now? Why are you not happy with the progress you've made over the last 3 months? Um, and then as we have that conversation, we get to the point where the person's talking about how they they they're thinking about their old self. So they're comparing themselves, now in their 40s
Right.
to their early 30s, and like, well, maybe I can break some old records, and maybe I can compete in this
Sure.
sport again. Um, but then as we're talking more, it, it, be, it becomes apparent that they didn't even stop to think, why do they even consider this addition?
Right.
And as we did, the person actually changed their mind. That they through the conversation they decided that the image, it's like the visual in their head of what they think they're going to go back to, is not what reality would look like.
Yeah.
And once they came to that conclusion on their own, they're like, I guess I don't want that anymore.
Yeah. And
So
it doesn't fit their current lifestyle. It's not Like you think
Yeah.
you want to go back to something that you used to be, but your life was different back then, right?
Right.
You had different goals. You were at a different point in life, a different mentality, different responsibilities, all that stuff. So, and I think that's why for me, when I'm working with people, you know, because it's the same, every guy that I've talked to, everybody I've ever talked to on a video, face to face, it always comes back to that image. It always comes back to that mental picture of where we think we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody struggles with reimagining themselves and putting themselves into the present context of their life,
Mm-hmm.
and where they want to go from here, not try to walk back 10 years and start from there and then catch up. And then like, it just doesn't, you can't go backwards, guys. You cannot go backwards. You got to start where you are now and be present in the current context. Um, the focus being on quality of life, strength, ability to do things, freedom in activity, all those types of things being the focus. When you get to that point and then you want to take it to the next level, that perfectly, that makes sense, right? You're going to progress. Progression is getting to a point where you're no longer seeing advancement or improvement. Then you go to the next step. You don't go to step 2 until you've finished step 1, right? So you got to finish step 1 first. And a lot of people start seeing success. They get halfway through step 1 and start looking at, oh, what's next? Oh, what's next? What's next? Well, we're not done with 1 yet. Let's stay here, and then we'll move you forward.
Yep.
Cool.
Completely agree.
Yeah. All right. So, gosh, let me look here. Hold on. I got your thing. You sent some. You were talk a little bit about your competitive side. You've done a ton of different things with fitness,
Yeah.
kettlebell stuff, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, and just from using you as an example, you're an outlier. In case you didn't realize that, you're an outlier,
No,
right?
I see myself as that.
For most men, most people in general have not had the opportunity, the focus, determination, commitment, and discipline to do the things that you've done. So talk a little bit about the things that you've done, and then kind of merge. We're going to segue from our last, what we just talked about, of that image, and how you're dealing with getting out of that stuff. You're not as competitive anymore. You're
Mhm.
getting older. How do you deal with what you've done in the past to where you're going, and what's next in your life?
Yeah. Okay. So, in the world of competition, so if we go all the way back to martial arts stuff, I I never, I personally do not feel like anything I've ever done athletically ever was easy for me.
Mhm.
I don't see myself as a good athlete, never have. Um, what I see myself as is a stubborn person who wants to prove people wrong,
Okay.
and I like challenge. I like to see if I can make something happen that previously I didn't think I could do.
Hmm.
Much like we already talked about the business thing, right? So it even applies to other aspects of my life. And so, um, competed in martial arts. I wasn't really that good at that, in my opinion. It was probably my least um, quality, sport. And then transition into powerlifting after that from martial arts injury. That's what got me into weight training in general. And then, so I did pretty good at powerlifting. I got to the state level,
Okay.
and then went into CrossFit. And that, I'd say I'm also kind of mediocre at CrossFit. I mean, I did make it to regionals
Okay.
in I think it was 2012 or 13, one of those two. But, I look back at that and it's way harder now to get to that level. There's
Yeah.
no way I could even.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So, it was kind of like right time in history to be involved,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I moved into weightlifting. That I've made it to the world level. So I competed in world championships in 2018 in Barcelona. So that was a really cool experience.
Cool. Yeah.
And then kettlebell stuff has sort of been a consistent tool ever since I was in martial arts. That's where I was introduced to it. So there's portion, it's a small portion of kettlebell world that's competitive at the world level, and I have placed actually. So I'm ranked third in the world in kettlebell sport through IKLF, and then I just started competing in strongman last year. Yeah, last
Okay.
year, and I think I'll do pretty good at strongman. And so I I get bored easy. I like being I want to be a good mover. Like my favorite compliment people give me is I'm a beautiful mover.
Mhm.
That when Jason does something, he looks the same as when he's like starting as when he ends,
Yeah.
everything's consistent. And I like showing that I don't have to pick any one particular system, right? I like being able to in the same year jump between powerlifting, CrossFit, weightlifting, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and show that I don't have to buy into the dogma of each subculture. Um, Now, owning these businesses that I have now, and it's 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 become my main it's become my main focus, um, and it has allowed me, as I've become less competitive, it's allowed me to shift my attention into another part of my life that it reminds me of starting all the competition stuff back in the day, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
me, the competition stuff at this point is sort of second nature. Like I can literally just go into anything and I'm not scared and I know what's going to happen and
Right.
my
Because
expectations.
you've done everything. You've already done
Right.
most. Yeah. Right. So.
Right. But business is not that way, right? That's only a 7 or 8 year endeavor for me. So, um, and so that has given me a sense of purpose while I've given the competition stuff a break.
Okay.
I think, I mean, I'll just speak for myself, but I do believe this to be true for most people too. I'd say particularly men,
Mhm.
is we need a sense of purpose. Like something has to be driving us in our lives to make
Yep.
decisions in a certain direction. And if it's not competition anymore, then I have to replace it with something. At least my personality does.
Right.
And if I failed to do that, I do think I would start to spiral into things like depression
Mhm.
and substance abuse and things of that nature. So there has to be something that I replace competition with, and I've chosen it to be business. And
Yeah.
I look at that world as, a version of competition.
Okay. You just said something that just clicked in my head. Um, Not having a purpose, you could spiral into depression and substance abuse.
Hmm.
That is an issue that many, many more people deal with than realize they're dealing with.
Hmm.
And particularly if you look at, and this I'm still processing this because this is a really deep conversation. I think you and I could talk about this ad nauseum a little bit, I think. And that is, substance abuse doesn't mean drugs all the time.
Hmm.
Substance abuse can be food. Substance abuse can be TV. Substance abuse can be porno.
Hmm.
Substance abuse can be bad relationships. Like there's so many different things that are negative aspects in our lives that we still gravitate to because we don't have anything else to hold on to. We
Yeah.
know they're not good for us. We know that they're things that are, negatives and holding us back and giving us bad mental images and doing that kind of stuff. But because we don't have a purpose, we don't have something bigger than ourselves or a goal or a focus that we've grabbed onto to hold on to, we kind of let ourselves go in all these other different directions.
Hmm.
And no matter how focused or determined, I think there are always times in everyone's life where that is a challenge. You
Absolutely.
have to like, it's something that I've dealt with, this whole COVID and coronavirus lockdowns and restrictions and everything else, right? When it first happened, I was dealing with, man, what am I going to do? I found some stuff in the middle of that. And then in the last few weeks, it's been rough for me. Like, what am I doing for my fitness? Do I really want to stay on this nutrition track? Where am I going? What are my goals? So having to reevaluate and be aware and be willing to admit to yourself that, hey, I'm struggling, I need help, I got to figure something out. You got to put the pride aside because your health is way more important.
Yeah. And I mean, feeling states drive everything, right? So even like I behave a certain way in whatever context we're talking about,
Mhm.
that we might be talking about. I behave a certain way because it makes me feel good, whatever good means at that time. It could be
Right.
different emotions, right? But and so when you think of substance abuse, and the examples you gave are good examples, they just become tools to change the feeling state. But the reality is that's everyone's day to day too.
Right.
So me, like work, for example, a very real tool that sometimes it has negative consequences. Is if I'm feeling depressed or angry, I might distract myself with work,
Yep.
and that can that can become a problem, right?
Right.
Because it's just another example of me distancing myself from what I'm actually feeling,
Right.
um, and then I just happen to choose maybe a behavior that society deems as healthy, even though that's a very arbitrary decision, right?
Right.
Right. So the feeling states drive most of our behavior most of the day, and we're all going to do whatever we perceive makes us feel good
Right.
most of the time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something that I'm not. I think about. I hear people talk about it sometimes, but every once in a while, something clicks in your head, and you're like, man, there's so much more to it than just drugs when you talk about substance abuse.
Definitely.
What is what is your number one struggle right now as you're just over 40, you're 41, you're looking at the next 10 years of your life? What is the number one struggle you have as far as looking down the road and asking yourself, can I continue this? Where do I go? Where am I going with fitness, with health, with whatever? Is there ever going to be a point where you kind of say, okay, I'm good, I can just maintain? Or do you think you're always going to be striving for something extra, something more? How do you handle that discussion?
Yeah. What I'd like to say, what I'd like to say is that I'll get to a point where I am comfortable with not being able to achieve more. Um,
Mhm.
I am
That's
not
hard.
there yet.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I am not. I am definitely not there yet.
Mhm.
I'm fully aware, rationally, that the day is going to come where my biology just can't keep up with, the training stresses.
Mhm.
Um, and so I this is a big part of why I do a lot of introspection, a lot of internal work, and have, psychologists, that I've worked with for years, um, and talk with, friends and mentors, and frankly, even me helping other people. It is there's a things get mirrored back to me, and helping other
Absolutely.
people. So when I'm working with, clients and such, it allows me to also at the same time look back at myself. And so I'd like to think that all this mental training over time will one day culminate into, essentially surrender, right? At some point, I know the day's coming where Jason can't define himself as a very competitive athlete anymore.
Mhm.
That he might be other things, but that day will have to end,
Right.
and that I've put years of time and preparation inside my own head, essentially, knowing that at some point that day is coming, and if I don't feel prepared for it emotionally and sort of had tools in my life to direct my energy elsewhere,
Right.
that really bad things could happen
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
my health.
Yeah. You don't want to be that NFL player who played for 15 years who gets out and then ends up working at a car wash somewhere, right? Because
Right.
they weren't prepared to lose that identity, because it is about identity.
Right.
I dealt with that selling my gym. It was very, very hard for me to let go of that, even though I knew it was the right decision and I had other places I wanted to go. I had goals. I had other things that I was focusing on. Here's where I want to go. And it was still really, really hard because this gym was me. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that. And it was really, really hard because I felt like I was losing my identity. And that can be very devastating, very, very devastating.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. Do you have, let's talk real quick about your schedule, your routine. Tell us a little bit about how you start your day, kind of what you do throughout the day, maybe, how you eat, what you eat, because I think everyone's a little different, right? So my circle, as you know, is mostly carnivore. I talk to and I work with a lot of people that are carnivore or keto. But then there's people like you. I think you're probably lower carb than most, but you still do, I wouldn't say that you're keto, right? You don't do high fat, you don't focus on low carb. So talk a little bit about how you eat and what your daily routine kind of looks like, because you have some cool stuff. You got red light, you do a bunch of different things. Which I need to get from you because I want to put that on my Christmas wish list.
Okay. Yeah, I'll text that to you.
Send me that link.
Okay, so I wake up these days that can range between usually it's like 7 to 8 in the morning. And then I go downstairs, I start prepping food for the day. What do I eat? It's basically whole food focused, and it is lower carbohydrate than most athletes that do what I do, like strength sports. And I don't. So I've done a lot of things with nutrition for my own body, and I've just sort of gradually found what makes me feel best and function best. And so that's how I arrived at this. It's not really, I don't really have any particular belief system around food other than, eat whole food stuff as best as possible, align yourself with nature as best you can. And so I eat, at any given meal, the ratio of what I'm eating is probably half protein and fat. Like I either choose fatty meats or I add fat to the meal with butter or extra virgin olive oil.
I've seen avocado, like some different things.
Avocado.
Like that,
yeah. So there's usually, if I took a lot of times I'm eating out of my travel containers, but if you took this rectangle, right, that we're looking at me in, and we divided it into half, about half of it's meat and fat, and then the other half is some sort of vegetables and usually like a whole grain of some sort. So rice is my main go-to. It makes me feel the best. Quinoa I can tolerate too.
And it's a great transport for butter.
Yeah. I love homemade.
That's the only good thing about rice for me. It gets you butter with it.
I love homemade breads that are nuts and whole grains and stuff. So that I can tolerate too. But things like crappy breads, mass-produced commercial breads don't make me feel good. What else? Pastas make me feel terrible. So bunch of meat, a little bit of carbohydrates, and a good amount of vegetables. Then I do that usually 4 or 5 times a day. And so I wake up, I prep my food. I usually go to the gym and do my exercise. So it goes in different orders, but I might have a client and then do my exercise or reverse. Get my exercise done when the gym's dead and kind of quiet. I don't get bothered. And then usually the middle of the day is some combination of trying to get sunshine, walk my dog, school. So I'm enrolled in the Czech Academy. So I'm actually having to relearn how to study and prioritize time management for that.
So much fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. So the middle of the day has that. I usually try and get a nap in of some sort. It might only be 30 minutes. There have been days where it's been long, like 90 minutes. It's probably been a couple of months since I've been able to get a long nap. Not because I didn't have the time, but because of emotions and my head just sort of thinking.
Right.
Um, so after the middle of the day, study break and sunshine and some sort of nap, I go back to work at the gym, teach some classes, do some client stuff. And then usually when I get home after the gym, it's like 8:30 maybe at night. I usually do have to do some sort of computer-based work.
Hmm.
And then I also will try and play the piano.
I didn't know
So
that. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
I grew up playing the piano, but I dropped it between, well, basically college years all the way
Okay.
to pandemic, honestly. So
Right. So
pandemic I had to pick it back up.
yeah, so I played the drums in high school and haven't picked it up. It's been 30 plus years, but it kind of always in the back of my mind, like maybe I want to get a little practice set and start taking lessons again, but
You should.
I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. So if I do that, we'll have to get together and
It's
we can form
amazing.
the Fit Guys Over 40 band.
There you go. Yeah. It's been great relearning to play the piano.
Yeah.
And then so I'd say about 9:30, 10 is
Mhm.
when all that's done. And then I usually just watch TV till I go to sleep. I I have an infrared bulb that I use when I'm inside the house. So when I'm watching television at night, the infrared bulb's always shining
Oh,
on me. When I'm
so it's not like
working.
a special light thing you got. It's just a regular like light. You just put a bulb in it and it's, oh, okay. I
Yeah,
was
no,
thinking you had like some cool contraption or whatever.
nah. Now you
Oh,
can
nice.
buy
Okay.
things like that, but I went the cheap route and just got, like a clamp lamp,
Yeah.
like,
And then
and
gotcha.
then just a good, bulb.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I might, if I'm on the computer here with you now, if I'm working on the computer at home, the bulb's shining on me. If I'm
Right.
chilling in the living room watching television at night, bulb shining on me. Um, and then, that's part of my routine. Usually when I'm
Gotcha.
watching
Okay.
television is when I'm also doing mobility stuff. I
Hmm.
don't do well, like right now I'm standing while I'm talking, with you. I don't do well with sitting still at all. And so watching television is basically me stretching and mobilizing,
Okay.
standing. Uh, I've always been, even as a kid, like that, like restless,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
difficulty sitting.
Awesome.
Um,
Cool. All right. Yeah. I definitely got to get one of those lamps then, or those light bulbs, because I end my day similar. So I'm either watching TV or playing Xbox or doing something for about an hour or whatever before I go to bed.
mhm.
Um, That's awesome. I could also probably start my day with it because like when I first get up in the morning, I usually, social media is my life. So I actually get up in the morning, I get something to drink, get a cup of water or whatever, and I lay in bed for a good 45 minutes, hour, just trying to get all my social media stuff for the
Mm,
day out of the way. And that's a perfect time. I could just sit there and start my day with some infrared. That's a
yeah.
good idea. Awesome. Okay, cool. Do you have anything that, we're going to wrap this up. Do you have anything that you want to kind of leave people with to kind of take forward from your story, from your life, drop some
Yeah.
wisdom on people so they can kind of keep moving
So
forward and
absolutely. Um, so one is develop the habit of reflection and
mm,
introspection.
mhm.
Um, make it is a learned skill and it is a behavior that we can train ourselves to do day to day. So create it, because without it, you're on autopilot and
Yeah.
most of the time don't know why you're doing what you're doing. Um, and then the other part is, uh, fitness and health, it's actually pretty simple. So the the industry would have us believe that we got to spend a lot of money and a lot of time doing a lot of very, difficult, challenging things. But in general, if we're just trying to, live a long, comfortable, disease-free life, a lot of it is simple and much of it is actually free,
Hmm.
or at least reasonable, close to free. So what do we need to do? We got to move. We got to hydrate. We got to spend time with ourselves. Quiet time essentially. We have to eat in a way that provides nutrition, so that we're thriving. You know, that might be different for different people and different at different in different times of someone's life.
Mhm.
We need connection to the sun and the earth, you know, so nature. You know, it blows my mind that humans in general as a species act like we are somehow separate from the natural world, as if we have the level of power to control any of that, which is
Right.
a complete fallacy. Um, and so these things, um, you know, these simple behaviors. Um, oh, I think I forgot move, like some
Move.
sort of fitnessy, you know, some activities that you enjoy that that you know you can stick with and hopefully even do with some people, right? So
Right.
sometimes you know we need relationships,
Right. And if
and
you can do it with people outside,
yeah,
even
exactly.
better,
Check a
even
bunch of
better. Right.
boxes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, this health and fitness stuff, it doesn't need to be complicated. And it doesn't need to even be expensive either.
Right.
So, yeah. So, develop introspection and reflection and simplify the steps to becoming healthy.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for your time, Jason. If anybody's looking to get a hold of Jason, whether through from a personal training perspective, just following him on Instagram, I think actually Facebook is where you do most of your, or do you do
It's both.
Noble? Yeah, both. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at Noble Training Institute on Instagram,
Correct.
okay, at Top Tier Columbia on Instagram and on Facebook for the gym.
Correct.
And then, you know, if you guys have any questions or want to follow, go ahead and do that. We'll be putting this up on YouTube, and I'll get this to you as well, Jason, so you can put it up on your stuff.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Cool. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.